Now, we are often talking about how you should swim and what sort of things you should be doing in the pool. And I'm sure many of you think you're doing things perfectly as it is, but chances are you're likely making some mistakes without even realizing it.
Yeah, we're going to be covering the most common mistakes that easily go unnoticed and then helping you to work out how to identify the problem and then how to correct it. The front of your stroke often comes under a lot of scrutiny, and that's because it's the start which will then have an impact on the rest of your stroke. So if you're trying to overreach in order to compensate for a lack of or a poor catch, you end up with a bit of a pause in the stroke that can lead to a stop-start style motion. This can also put more pressure onto your shoulder joint as you're trying to pull in that overextended position.
Yeah, and signs of having this overreaching present in your stroke can be impingement type feelings of pain in your shoulder. You can also develop an excessive amount of gliding out the front end of your front crawl stroke. And if this is even exaggerated further, you can actually develop a catch-up type of stroke whereby your recovery arm is effectively catching up with your swimming arm out front. And this, to be honest, can be quite a difficult mistake to alter because your whole timing of your swimming stroke has to be looked at. Break it down to single arm to start so you can think of keeping that continuous movement. It will soon become obvious as you don't have the other hand to mask the dead patch in your stroke. Moving back to full stroke with the arms but no legs, so using a pool buoy, will encourage a more continuous movement for the same reason as before, and you'll be relying purely on your arms to keep balance and forward movement.
Doggy paddle and water polo are two great drills for this, partly because you've got your head up so you can actually see what's happening at the front of the stroke, but also having your head up won't actually allow you to have that pause because you'll find it too difficult.
Now, the shortened back end is pretty much the opposite to overgliding at the front of your stroke when you're pulling. Now, you've put in all that hard work with your catch and the majority of your pool stroke, so don't throw it all away too soon at the back end of your stroke.
Yeah, it's a tricky one to know that you're doing because you can still have a really smooth stroke, but it can be hidden by a nice quick turnover. So try doing a few strokes when you brush your leg with your hand as you finish the pull and begin the recovery, and note the point on your leg. And you can simply check by placing your arm by your side and seeing if that's a similar place, or in fact, you are actually taking your hand and arm out of the water too soon and losing that last part of propulsion.
Now, if you feel you're cutting your stroke short, a drill that we like to talk about is a Superman drill, where we've got one arm extended out front, the other arm down by our side, and then we do 6 kicks and then we swap that over. And this will really force you to finish each stroke at the very end.
Yeah, so it's simple and effective because you've got that 6 kick time when your hand is by your side to just reiterate where it needs to finish. And also it's one stroke at a time, so you've got more time to concentrate. We're returning to the front of the stroke for the typical start of this problem. If your hand entry is going across the midline and veering over to the other side, then it's likely to cause a wiggle of the whole body as it tries to correct this movement. Put a snorkel on and swim. By keeping your head still, you can still look forwards and you should be able to see your hand crossing in front of you, or hopefully not. But that said, a snorkel can naturally correct it by taking out excessive head movement. Another way to test your stroke would be to swim with one arm and close your eyes. If you quickly end up on the other side of the lane, it's a sure sign your arm isn't going in where it should.
Now, we have made a whole video on snaking, so do have a look at that. But a couple suggestions that we've got right now are using a snorkel for some swimming, as reducing or even eliminating any head movement should hopefully stop that wiggle that Heather was talking about. And then another drill is the catch-up drill, which by focusing on having one hand resting beside the other at the front of your stroke will hopefully make you stop reaching across and causing that crossing of the centre line. Now, having a flat body or a lack of rotation often goes hand in hand with snaking, as we're naturally overcompensating for that inability to get a good catch. Now, you might often find that if you're struggling to turn your head enough to catch a breath, or even you're not managing to utilise those big lat muscles, these are often likely causes of you sitting too flat in the water.
Adding in rotation will naturally take the pressure off your shoulders, as well as allowing the front of your stroke, so your catch and your pull, to become more efficient. Now, some of the drills we've already talked about will help with this, as will side rotated kick. Now, this is basically kicking on your side so you're facing the wall or the lane rope, and it's an over-exaggerated movement, so hopefully when you return back to your normal stroke, you'll end up naturally having more rotation. This one is a problem very competent swimmers can struggle with, and is probably the hardest to identify, as you can have a stroke that looks good from poolside and even swim fairly efficiently. However, dropping the elbow below the hand makes it very hard to engage those larger muscles such as your lats, and again puts more pressure on your shoulders.
When swimming with a snorkel, you can sometimes see what your elbow is doing, and paddles can help identify mistakes here too. If you take off the second strap that sits by your wrist, then your paddles are likely to come off if you're excessively dropping that elbow. Now, we think that sculling and doggy paddle are two great drills to help you focus on keeping that elbow nice and high and also making sure you engage the right muscle groups.
Yeah, well, self-diagnosis is difficult at the best of times. Put yourself horizontal and in water and it becomes even harder. So if you feel that you might be guilty of a few of those mistakes, then try our self-diagnosis tools. And if you're really lucky and you've got a friend with a GoPro, then why not watch it yourself so you know exactly what you need to work on.
Yeah, so hopefully you find this video nice and interesting. So please hit that thumb up like button if that's the case. Find the globe on screen to get all the other videos we have done on the channel. And if you want to see a video that we have done about high elbow swimming, you can find that one here.
And if one of your problems is snaking, then you can check out a video to help with that problem just down here.